What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of STL Sunday. Now, this is the show where I try and teach you a little bit of CAD, specifically focused on Fusion. Autodesk Fusion or Fusion 360, whatever you want to call it. But in today's episode, last time we talked about doing bumpers, and I was going to go into a little bit more about that, but I have another project that I want to work on quickly, and it's kind of got an interesting add-on and something that may be interesting to you for other purposes. So for this week, I need to make a simple tool holder for a project that I've got in the garage. I've got a new tool cart that I'm outfitting with the Gridfinity system. Now, the Gridfinity system is kind of a standardized system that you're able to print mainly, and then there's all kinds of additions that you can have or print for it, either custom designed. You can download a ton of them from like Maker World or Thingiverse, or we're going to show you how to make some super easy on your own with an easy downloadable tool on the Fusion App Store. So without getting too heavy into this, let's jump into Fusion and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is a blank screen of Fusion, just like you would see it when you open it up, except for one little thing. You see at the top, there's these two new icons here, Gridfinity Bin and Gridfinity Baseplate. Those are the new add-on that you can download. Now, if you don't have these, you need to go download this add-on. And to do that, you go to Utilities first, and then in the Add-ins section, you're gonna go to the Fusion App Store. Now, when you go to the App Store, it's gonna bring you to this page. And from here, you can just search for Gridfinity, or as right now, it's in one of the most popular add-ons. So, but if it's not there when you see this video, you can just search Gridfinity, and you're gonna see Gridfinity Generator, and that is what you're going to download. You're gonna select it, you're gonna download it, and you're going to install it, whether you're on Mac or Windows. Download and install like normal, and then restart Fusion. And now I have got this screen here, and when you open it up, you will see those two new add-ons. This makes everything very, very easy. Now, I'll show you a quick clip of my tool cart where I have created this base. But to create the base, all I needed to do was decide the size that I had to work with. And then you come into this and you start with your base and you add in all of the parameters. Now, the standard Gridfinity sizing is initially put in here already. So you don't have to mess with any of that if you don't want. If you wanted to like just customize it, make it of your own size, you could do that. I don't necessarily recommend it because there's so many pre-created configurations that you can download and they would just drop right in. I suggest that you just work with the basic parameters that they, lay out here. From here, you're just gonna say how many spaces you want. My spaces that I printed on my Bamboo H2D were 6 wide and 7 deep. So I went 6 by 7. And then the base plate type, you can have light, skeletonized, or full. Full is just a solid back with the grid shape. I did a skeletonized version on mine, so it's just the outer grid boundaries. Then I also added the magnet cutouts, which you see there. Now I don't have the magnets installed in mine for most things, but you can add them if you want. Beyond that, you can add screw holes. Those screw holes are so that you can tie multiple plates together easily. I'm gonna leave that selected so that I can show you that. Add side padding if you want. I added 1/4 millimeter to the side padding on the left and right, and that was so that it matched the exact same that it had everywhere else. You can see I just measuring and comparing models that it created, that is what I determined I needed. So 0.25 is what I'd added around there. There was also this extra bottom thickness. Now on mine, I needed to dodge a couple of bolts that was in the bottom of the Harbor Freight tool cart. And if I wanted to be able to put bins everywhere, I needed to add a little bit of extra thickness. So I just adjusted this measurement. Doesn't matter though, because it doesn't affect anything where the bins go themselves. It just raised it all up by like an extra 6 or 8 millimeters or something like that. So now that I've got all of that done, I can just hit OK. And you're gonna wait for a second while it does its thing. And then all of a sudden you've got this pre-configured Gridfinity base that you can just go from there. Now, I thought I did click the add screw holes, but they're not in there. I don't know why that is. It worked on my other one, but the screw holes just come in through the side here. You may actually need that extra base padding, maybe to make those work. I know I added that and they worked for me in that situation, and that would make sense so that it had enough room. That's the only explanation I can think of, but it's not my add-on, so I don't know. But that is all you would need to start with there, and you would have exactly what you needed. Now, if you wanted to go forward and create the base or the trays, I would recommend create your base like this in one file and save that out. And then, or if you need to make any modifications like I did, you could do that in here. Like I had gone in mine and I needed to cut out one corner space on my base to make it work for exactly how I wanted. And if you wanted to do that, just for a quick example, you come up here to the very top and hit new sketch, come down here, and just to make it simple, you could just select this top surface. And then from there, you just need to make a sketch. So a number of different ways to do that. Let's just do a quick rectangle that's kind of down and dirty between everything. You could add a line by clicking up here. You can come over here and toggle to construction, or you could do that same thing by clicking L on your keyboard and then X to toggle construction on or off. Now, I'm actually going to go from this center point here to a center point here. And then I'm going to do a center point constraint up here. I'm going to select that line and I'm going to select the point of that edge. And I just know that that is going to put that thing perfectly in the center, making it easier than drawing extra lines or anything like that. Then I'm going to use a collinear constraint, which just means that two lines are perfectly in line, not parallel next to each other or anything like that, but right on top of each other or perfectly in line with each other. So then I'm going to select this outside edge and the outside edge of the tray, and the same thing down here. And that will give me a fully defined sketch that I can be confident in. I'm going to hit E for extrude. I'm going to select that inner profile. I also need to come in and select that corner. And that looks like it. From there, I can rotate down and around. I do that by clicking the center wheel of my mouse and holding Shift on my keyboard. And that allows me to do that movement easily. I might not have discussed that as much in the past. Next, I'm just going to drag that arrow, and I can just see by dragging it down that I have everything. You can define that distance that you drag it down, or you can just click a surface and it'll go exactly to that bottom. Lots of ways to do that, just depends on what you're in the mood for. Then you hit enter, and now I have a corner knocked out. If I wanted to clean it up, I could do quick chamfer, and I believe that these use a 3.5 millimeter chamfer, or a rounded edge. So I'm just gonna kind of match that, and you can see that that radius does not match. It must have been a 4 millimeter. So down at the bottom, I'm gonna go down to that last feature, the fillet, right click, edit, and I'm gonna change from 3.5 to 4. That's what it used. I don't know why I thought it was 3.5. But now you've got pretty much exactly what I did when I created the ones for my tool cart. You could just send this to your printer. And then you've got your base plates. However that works, size it for your 3D printer and go off to the races. This is the size that fit well on my H2D, which is a pretty large build size. If you wanted to measure, you can hit the inspect button up here, come down to one side, rotate to the other and select it. And you can see that that is 293 millimeters. That's larger than my Bamboo X1C here would handle, as I believe it's around 250. So gives you a little bit of an idea of what size we're working with. But that is how you create a very simple, very just basic. And like I said, there's lots of ways that you can adjust things. Now, I don't think that you can go back and make adjustments in that window that we very first looked at to update this. You just have to kind of start over. That is one thing that I noticed. For a free plugin, I'm still not mad at that. The project that I actually need today, though, is different. I already have these. These are all done. These are in my tool cart down in the garage. I'm making this tool cart for that new Makera CNC machine that I got. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click New Design. You can have multiple designs open in Fusion at one time if you weren't aware. So you could look back and forth between them or anything like that. Again, we're going to start with a blank document, and this time I'm going to use the Gridfinity bin command at the top Now, I previously was down in the shop and I've got some tools. These are Vanquish tools and I want to have 4 of them in my cart. And I kind of laid them out, seeing how they were going to work. And I'm going to have 4 of these and I want to have 2 in one direction and 2 in an opposing direction so that they stack as tightly together. And I believe that I'm going to be able to comfortably fit 4 of these within a spot that is 2 wide and 6 tall in the Gridfinity system. But I just needed that base information so that I could kind of define some things. Or we could have done it in CAD, but sometimes it's just worth looking at. You have a pretty good idea, it saves you some time. So I clicked the Gridfinity bin. I have this pop-up now. And again, I know that I need to be 2 wide and I need to be 6 tall. Bin height here. Now, you can see that this height of 5 units equals 38.8 millimeters. Now, I don't need that. I'm just going to set that to like 1, which is 10.8. That's fine because I just want the base. We're going to build from there to create our own custom actual piece. We do want it to generate the body, the bin type hollow. That's fun. Let's just go solid. I actually haven't played with that before. We're just going to select solid. I'm not worried about stackability because that's not going to be a thing. And from there, do we need grid type is uniform? That is correct. Add label along bin width. I'm not adding any of that. There's all kinds of things like add scoop, like so that you can easily get things out of a bin, like if you're putting screws or washers or things like that in there. Lots of great things in this menu. A really, really nice add-on. Screw holes I don't need. Magnet sockets I'm going to go ahead and click on because maybe I'll add magnets in there later. I have been minimizing my use of magnets in this tool cart just because it's in a situation that I'm doing metal fab work. Metal shavings just go everywhere and I don't need them collecting in there if I can help it. I'm not adding the tabs or anything like that, so we're just going to hit OK. And now we've got the Gridfinity base. You can see in the bottom the whole section there, 2 wide, 6 tall. So this is going to be the base for our quick little project for today. This is the tool holder or the tool itself in question. So rather than actually super closely modeling this, I'm just going to take some very rough measurements for some things, especially when you want some tolerance in the design or significant tolerance even. A ruler is super handy. Buy yourself some metal rulers. A 12-inch and a 6-inch is great to have. Also nice to note to get one where the 0 mark is on the edge, that there's not a buffer. Pay close attention to the photos when you're shopping so that you can get that, so that you can put it right up against something and that is your actual dimension. I am going to start a new sketch by coming up here, clicking the sketch, and then we're just going to start on this plane that's currently the bottom of the bin. And from here, I'm going to start by just saying the handle is roughly going to be a rectangle with roughly another rectangle underneath of it. Now, you can see this is not centered. It could be whatever size. You can also do a couple of things. You can hit midpoint. This is a little bit different than normal. And you can select this line and this line, and it will center them for you. A fun little trick, and then you can just adjust, and now we know exactly. The tooltips on these about 3.5 millimeter. So let's go ahead and just say 5. We just want it to be a comfortable fit in there. And using our ruler, we'll just say that the stick out on these is about 100 millimeters. So let's go like 110, just because. So that gives us that size. Now for the handle itself, again, we go to the end and look at this. We're going to be about 110 millimeters on the handle. So let's say we got an overall length of 115. Oh, look at that. I was right on. 115. So now we have that. We don't have the diameter yet. Let's go ahead and use the caliper. It's just easier. 18.75 at the fattest part. So I'm going to say 24. These are just these numbers feel like they should be 24 millimeters to me. I am going to establish that I want this to be 6 millimeters off this edge and 6 millimeters off the top. From here, you have a couple of options. We need to do either some math, which everybody loves, or we can just kind of draw it out and play around with things. Sometimes getting into the breakdown of math and all that just isn't people's thing. So if that's not your thing, the easy thing is, especially with a shape this simple, we can just redraw it. But we also need to redraw it down here as well. So again, we're just using the rectangle command, and I'm just sketching out these shapes super quickly. They don't have to be accurate yet or anything like that. I'm just going to do a bunch of random, and we're going to use a bunch of constraints to get this all the same. I'm going to go do those midpoint constraints like I did previously. So we're going to hit midpoint, which is the triangle. Then I'm going to select this line and this one. Narrow that up for a visual. I'm going to do that again here. You can see how I drew those kind of off center, and that was just specifically so I could get to them easier to do this constraint. You'll learn those little things over time, and it'll just be something that you start to do more often. So now I have 4 rectangles that all have the similar drawing style, and I'm just going to do a bunch of equal here, equal here, equal here, equal here, equal, equal. Then we're going to do the sides here and here, here, here. You could also do some collinears. You could do a bunch of different things to create the same thing. And we need to do the same with the length of the tool shaft. And then we need to do the width of the tool shaft. Now we drew all of those so that they're the exact same size, but they're not exactly constrained properly. One thing I do want to do is do a couple of collinear constraints. So collinear at the top. I know that I want this top one to be in line with this one, and I know I want the bottom ones to be in line as well. I do also know that I can add a dimension. So I'm going to hit D for dimension. I'm going to go down to the bottom. I'm going to make sure that I match this dimension here to what I had up here, which was 6. Now, I did that with a dimension. I could have also done it with a construction line, which may be helpful if I have to make modifications. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to do L for line, X for construction. I'm going to come back up here, and I'm just going to make a construction line that goes from this corner to the top. And then I'm going to come down to this side, and I'm going to do a project so that I have this outside line to work with, because that's currently not in my sketch. And then I'm going to do another line in construction mode from that corner down to that line. Now I can come up, hit equal, select that new line that I drew and what this line is. This line is defined because of this dimension already, and now that dimension is the exact same. So now if I change my mind, I need this to be tighter, or I've got more room and I can make it larger, I can come in and click, instead of 6, go to 12, and it moved them both. That is why using an equal constraint on a line is better than just a dimension. Now, I did this one here. I also can do this one down here because I know that that also needs to be on the piece of material, and that I know how far I want this one to be. So I'd like them to be the same. So again, I'm going to hit P for project. I'm going to make sure that the outside of this and the outside of this are both available. And hit enter. L for line, drop that in there. I didn't quite get it level, so I'll make it level. Hit L for line again, come down here, do the same thing over to the edge, throw a couple of equal constraints in place. Now I have those outside dimensions fixed. So what I need to check now is that I can't have all this stuff on top of each other. So we have to work that out. An easy way for us to do this is going to be more lines with more equal constraints. Why not? So I'm just going to go from these known points. Now I've got this one here. Now I need to make sure that there's room. So I'm going to go across the tool shaft again. There to there. Then I can do the same thing down here. Here to here. Here we need to make sure we have room again. Across there and to here. Now I'm going to do 2 equal constraints here, here and here. Then we're going to go from this one up here to this side. And I'm going to make sure that these top 2 are also equal. So there, it just moved everything into exactly the position that it has to be because the math only works out one way. That makes that pretty easy. We can look here though, and we can see that we don't have as much room as we do out here. One easy way for us to fix this is to delete this dimension. And we can take and say that this line here needs to be equal to this line in here. And now it equally spaced everything across the entire shape. If that stuff all doesn't immediately click with you, I get it. It's a lot of just equal, equal, equal. Why does all that define something? You don't have to do that. You can do things with dimensions, whatever works best for you. So I just said equal and construction lines, and I was using a lot of these little reference pieces to create all of this. If that was a little bit frustrating, you didn't follow that, don't worry too much about that. That's just a little bit of geometry and things like that that maybe you hate. So don't get too hung up if that was like one of those ugh moments. Now, from here, I've got the extra room for the length of these tooltips. I also have, or the body length even. So like maybe let's just make these a little bit more comfortable. Let's go to 120. No, that is a little too much. So we could actually just take up top and go from 6 to 4. And that tightened that part up. And that makes that still pretty good. So I think we're okay with that. Now from here, I'm going to hit E for extrude. We're going to select that profile. Now it doesn't go all the way to the outside edge. So I want to select all the way to the outside edge. So I'm going to hit escape, P for project. And rather than just selecting this, which is just individual lines or entities, I'm going to select this one over here, which is the whole body. So that's going to give me like the outside shape, profile, perimeter of the entire thing. Select the whole thing and hit OK. And now I just know that I've got that entire outside shape covered. Again, E for extrude, select that, and now we know that I can select the rest of it with one click. So now from here, it wants me to make a cut as I drag up because it's intersecting with a body already. All we're going to do is change that from cut to join to make it a solid body. I don't need to go this tall though. I really don't want these tools all the way down in a pocket just because it's unnecessary to easily hold them. Slightly over half is about all we need to do. And again, these are about 18.75. So what would that be? 9 3/8. So let's just call it 11, just to give it a little bit of extra. So 11 millimeters, and we got that to go up. You could leave it here. I don't love, just these pockets. I think they're kind of ugly. It's going to fight me a little bit if I just try and do some fillets though. Or it's not necessarily going to fight me, but it's going to make for some weird shapes down here at the tool shaft, but let's go with it. So I hit F on my keyboard for fillet, or you can come click it at the top. And we're going to select the tool handle area sides on everything. Oops. Down here. And finally down here. Now we did an 11 millimeter depth, and we could kind of just do that as the whole radius. So if we just make that 11 millimeters, it still works out. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit enter. Now, this is what I was talking about. The tool shaft is not all the way down there. So let's make a quick modification to that. We're going to go make a sketch. We're going to select that back tool surface, and I'm going to do a circle. We're going to just make it go all the way to that edge. We'll make sure that it's got a tangent constraint on both sides. So that will properly size it. Now it just needs a height. And to center that, I want it to be basically the center distance off of this center flat, which, like I was saying, was 9 3/8 when I was doing the math. It's not super important. We could round if we wanted. Let's just go to 9. As you can see from that, the center point is slightly below that line of the pocket. So we'll have a comfortable amount of tool setting in there. It's not going to rattle its way out super easily. So from here, I'm going to hit E for extrude, and I'm actually going to select just that lower section, and we can bring that out pretty easy. I am going to decide to not do a join. I'm going to do a new body and click OK. So now this piece here is a new body. If you want to see that more easily illustrated, I'm going to select A on the keyboard and bring up this appearance chart. This is the material that is currently being used. You can hit edit and you can change that color if you want something just to help visualize. Or you can right click duplicate, and then you have 2. You can hit edit and change that to something totally different. And if you want, you can select and grab that and drop it down. I did that so I could visualize that that section is a separate piece. It could be a different material, and that's what you would select in that drop down. From here, I'm going to use the move command up top. Move/copy is the command. I'm going to do bodies, and we can select this body if we like. And then over here, there's a number of different ways that you can move things. I'm going to use point to point. I'm going to select that. Origin point, like where you're starting. Find a repeatable point for the tool, like this corner next to it. Create a copy is what I'm going to select down here. And then target point, I'm going to come over to here and select that corner. And it just moved one over there for me. Now, the length of this is consistent as well. So lucky for me, we can just do that again. Select this again. Point to point is already selected. I'm going to click create copy, and we're going to select that corner there and this corner here. And then we just have to do that one more time. And now we've got all of those cavities filled with the same thing. I'm going to hit combine, and then we're just going to make everything one piece. So from here, I'm able to just send this to my printer. Hopefully you guys learned something on the sketching side, the modeling side, or the fact that this cool free Gridfinity option is available. But with that, it does it for this week's episode of STL Sunday. Appreciate you all for watching. If this did help you, consider subscribing to the channel. There's also channel membership in case you want to support the channel a little bit extra, anything like that. Otherwise, hit the like button. Hopefully, I'll see you back here for another episode of STL Sunday. See you guys on the next one.